Good morning and welcome this morning to Timeout. And thank you for taking time out of your busy schedule to join me this morning. Have you ever heard somebody say this? Is it possible to ask God to increase our faith? And have you ever felt that your faith isn't enough? Well, if you're watching this morning from a YouTube channel, please push the subscribe button and help us. And if you're watching from any platform and you are commenting and sharing, you are helping me to make social media a more positive medium as opposed to all the negativity out there. Because Timeout and Timeouters is all about sharing the positivity. Now, the question I posed before, have you ever felt that your faith isn't enough? And is it possible for us to pray, God, increase our faith? Those are two good questions, so don't go away. Now, I believe that faith is the ability to believe God. God gives us that ability because one day when we stand before Him and He says, Jack, why didn't you believe? I can say, God, but you never gave me the ability to believe. And so God has given to us this ability to believe, which is called faith. Now, there is a scripture that says that Romans chapter 12, verse 3, the latter part says, God has given to every man the measure of faith. Yes, every man, even the atheist has a measure of faith, even the agnostic. And yes, even the Christian that chooses not to believe still has that measure of faith. But you see, having that measure of faith is just what God has done. What you and I need to do is we have to exercise that measure, and that's when it becomes tricky. So it's not just about the measure of faith, it's about how we exercise that measure that God's given us. And that brings me then to the question you may say, Jack, but yes, God's given me that measure of faith, but how do I know that that measure is enough? Especially when I'm facing challenges, when I'm facing financial challenges, maybe in South Africa when you're facing all the challenges of the economy and load shedding and all the things that are coming against us, crime, and maybe in your family there's a sick child and you're looking for a job and you say, Jack, how can I know that the measure God's given me, that ability to believe God, which is faith, is enough? And that's a good question. And is it possible to pray, increase our faith? Well, let me just say that the disciples, and if you've ever thought they don't feel bad, because even the disciples of Jesus came to Him and said to Him, please increase our faith. Well, Jesus answered them very interestingly, because you see, Jesus can't increase your faith because He's given it to every man the measure of faith. So He answered them this way. He said, if you have faith like a mustard seed, which is one of the smallest seed in the plant kingdom, and you say to this mulberry tree that was standing before them, be uprooted and be planted in the sea, which is so unusual and supernatural, that would never happen. It says it will obey you. That's the potential of the mustard seed part of your measure. Just a mustard seed of the measure that God's given every person is able to uproot a tree and plant it into the sea. Well, that means that there's nothing wrong with the potential God's given you, but it's about exercising that potential. You see, when Jesus said to somebody, you of little faith, He was not saying you have a little portion of faith. He wasn't speaking about their measure He'd given them. He was talking about how they were exercising a portion of that measure. He was saying, you who are exercising a little part of your measure, when He said you of little faith. And when He said you of great faith, He was saying you who are exercising a great portion of your measure of faith. And so it's not about when Jesus speaks about great and little, He wasn't speaking about the portion or the measure God has given her. He was speaking about the portion we are exercising. You see, faith is like a muscle. I can have them, but they only work for me when I exercise them. And spiritually, faith is like a muscle. God's given it to you. It's got great potential, like a mustard seed. If you just use a mustard seed size, that muscle can do things that are incredible, but you have to exercise it. So I want to encourage you this morning. Next time you're facing that challenge, maybe it's a mountain in your life, maybe it's a crisis. Remember, Jesus said to his disciples when they felt they didn't have enough, when they said, increase our faith. He said, if you have faith and you exercise just like a mustard seed of it, you can say to a tree, be uprooted and planted in the sea, and it will obey you. So I want to say, until we get to that point, your faith and the faith that God's given me is surely enough. My name is Windt. You've been watching Timeout. God bless you. I'll catch you next week.